Have you ever wondered why some women, without lifting a finger, seem to leave powerful men restless, pacing, unable to escape their thoughts, while others, no less beautiful, pass by unnoticed like shadows fading in the crowd? Most people believe it is youth, beauty, or charm that makes men obsessed, but the truth is far more ancient, woven into the unconscious fabric of feminine energy itself. What you think pushes him away, mystery, distance, even silence, may actually be what draws him closer, for Carl Jung believed that what is denied by the conscious mind will inevitably be pursued by the unconscious. Today, perhaps more than ever, those hidden forces decide whether a man merely glances, or becomes haunted by the memory of you. To understand this, one must step beyond the surface of attraction into the archetypal field where man and woman mirror each other's unlived depths. The strong man is not drawn to the ordinary repetition of what he already knows, he is pulled by the energy that awakens his forgotten myths. Each forbidden feminine energy acts as both a mirror and a catalyst, forcing him into confrontation with his own shadow. It is not simply you he cannot let go of, it is the part of himself you stir awake. And this awakening, like fire in dry grass, spreads uncontrollably, setting his mind ablaze. The first encounter is rarely logical. It is sensation, an unspoken recognition that defies the order of reason. When a woman carries the energy of withheld presence, she does not flood him with reassurance or explanations. She remains, in Jung's words, the anima figure, elusive, half-veiled, radiant in her silence. He feels the pull not because she demands attention, but because she denies the obvious and embodies the unseen. That denial becomes an echo chamber in his psyche, where desire ricochets until obsession forms. You may think speaking more, proving more, giving more makes him stay. Yet the feminine force works in paradox. What is restrained becomes irresistible, what is hidden becomes indispensable. But obsession is not built on silence alone. There is the fire of contrast, where tenderness walks hand in hand with danger. The woman who shows her softness while guarding an impenetrable boundary evokes the eternal myth of the untouchable priestess. He longs to conquer, yet senses he may be the one transformed. For men who pride themselves on strength, this is unbearable and irresistible at once. She is both sanctuary and battlefield. In her presence he feels safe, yet tested. He cannot categorize her, cannot file her neatly among his experiences. And so, the unconscious commands him, return to her, again and again, until the mystery is solved. But mystery, by nature, resists solution. This is why some men become obsessed not with a body, but with an essence. The archetype of the forbidden feminine energy is not about manipulation. It is about embodying that which awakens unconscious yearning. Jung knew that projection governs desire. A man will project onto a woman the missing parts of his own soul. When she embodies light, he feels he has found salvation. When she carries shadow, he is terrified yet magnetized. The more she reflects what he cannot integrate, the more he clings, because leaving her would mean leaving himself unresolved. You, standing as mirror, hold his forgotten fragments, and he cannot walk away until he dares to face them. This is the power of obsession. It is not really about you at all, yet it binds him to you. In one glance, one silence, one untamed gesture, he senses something in you that has no replacement. And though the world may call it irrational, his unconscious knows, he is already marked. The deeper current of obsession flows when the feminine carries not only allure, but contradiction. A woman becomes unforgettable when she embodies paradox, nurturer and destroyer, softness wrapped around steel, the embrace that comforts and the gaze that disarms. Men live in a world of categories, of labels, of order. But when a woman refuses to be neatly defined, when she reveals herself as multiplicity, she strikes a chord in the archetypal psyche that refuses silence. Jung wrote that the anima carries both angel and demon, healer and temptress, muse and siren. When a man glimpses these forbidden dualities within a single figure, his conscious mind may panic, but his unconscious falls to its knees. The forbidden feminine energy does not always shout, nor does it always seduce in obvious ways. Sometimes it exists in the quiet defiance of not being swayed by approval. She may smile, but her smile is not currency, it is a gift freely given, never bartered. In her refusal to beg for validation, she withdraws from the cycle of male ego feeding. And this withdrawal, paradoxically, compels him to offer more. Why? Because strong men, accustomed to admiration, are disarmed when admiration is withheld. The woman who remains rooted in her worth, unshaken by praise or dismissal, becomes the mirror of his greatest insecurity, that his power may not be enough. And so he leans in, grasping for the recognition she does not easily give. Obsession is born where rarity exists. Just as the rare jewel is treasured precisely because it cannot be easily claimed, so too does a man obsess over the woman who is not available at every touch. But rarity does not mean distance alone, it is not about running or withholding affection entirely. It is about sacredness. Every gesture, every glance, every word from her feels deliberate, not scattered. She does not scatter her energy like coins into empty wells. She directs it like an arrow, precise and charged. A single touch from her feels like a revelation, because it is not diluted by overuse. This scarcity electrifies him, carving deep grooves into his memory, where she lingers long after she is gone. Yet, the paradox deepens, scarcity without warmth creates ice, and ice alone repels. What makes him obsessed is the weaving of warmth into the tapestry of sacred distance. He must feel both excluded and chosen, both denied and desired. When she looks at him, truly sees him, even for an instant, he experiences what few men dare admit they crave, recognition of their hidden child, their vulnerable essence beneath the armor. She does not collapse into him, but she does not ignore his humanity either. Instead, she gazes at him as though she sees through both his triumphs and his wounds, and accepts them without flattery. This gaze is unbearable and irresistible, for it touches the part of him even he refuses to touch. Such is the forbidden feminine energy, it awakens not lust alone, but revelation. He becomes obsessed not with conquest, but with the restoration of the missing pieces of himself. The woman who understands this need not play games or wear masks. She simply becomes what Jung described as the bridge between conscious and unconscious. Her presence forces him to confront his illusions, that control is safety, that strength is invulnerability, that desire can be mastered. And once this confrontation begins, he cannot turn away. What you may not realize is that this obsession is not a curse but a recognition. It is recognition that within you dwells the archetype he has denied all his life. Whether it is the nurturer he lost in childhood, the muse he buried under duty, or the dark feminine he has repressed in fear, you embody the shadow of his longing. This is why obsession grows. It is not about your face, your body, or your voice alone. It is about the eternal. There comes a moment when obsession ceases to be merely desire and begins to resemble surrender. This moment arises when the feminine energy no longer mirrors only what a man lacks, but also what he fears most, his own vulnerability. Strong men build empires out of armor, constructing identities of power, authority, and control. Yet when a woman arrives who radiates unshakable calm, a serenity born not of submission but of sovereignty, she unsettles his fortress. He senses in her a presence that does not seek to conquer him, nor to be conquered, but to exist beyond conquest altogether. This energy, untamed yet tranquil, threatens the very architecture of his defenses. And though his ego resists, his unconscious kneels. Imagine the power of a woman who does not chase validation, yet also does not reject affection. She walks as though the ground rises to meet her, as though time itself bends around her pace. In her stillness, she reveals a truth he has hidden from himself, that his ceaseless striving for recognition is but a disguise for emptiness. Jung warned that the unlived life presses upon the soul with unbearable weight, and it is often the anima, the woman figure, who brings this weight crashing into consciousness. When she embodies forbidden calm, he feels both liberated and terrified. To be near her is to stand in the silence of one's own void, and to long for her is to hope that void might finally be filled. But obsession is more than the hunger for fulfillment, it is the fever of projection. In her presence, he projects not only what he desires but also what he dreads. The feminine that carries shadows, her unapologetic anger, her sensuality unbound, her refusal to shrink, becomes the canvas for his own repressed instincts. He may rage against her unpredictability, yet he cannot look away, because she lives what he denies. She becomes the embodiment of his shadow self, and though he cannot fully possess her, he is compelled to circle closer, as if circling a flame that might both warm and burn. The danger, of course, lies in mistaking this energy for cruelty or manipulation. True forbidden feminine energy does not play for petty control. It is not about withholding affection as punishment, nor about deceiving for advantage. Its essence is authenticity, the rawness of being unapologetically whole, whether that wholeness comforts or unsettles. The woman who lives this truth does not measure herself by what he gives or withholds. Her worth is not contingent. And therein lies the secret, because she does not need his attention becomes magnetized to her. Men obsessed with such women often speak of them as unforgettable, even haunting. They describe them not in terms of appearance, but in terms of sensation. She made me feel alive, she made me feel seen, she made me feel undone. These are not compliments to her, they are confessions of his unconscious encounter with himself. He is not obsessed with her alone, he is obsessed with what she unlocked in him, a chamber of the soul that had long remained closed. Without her, he cannot easily find his way back there. And so his psyche demands he return, again and again, until the lesson is complete. This is why some men, even the strongest, cannot forget a woman they may have known only briefly. Time does not erode the mark she leaves, because what she touched was not temporal but archetypal. He obsesses because she awakened an eternal figure, one that transcends flesh and moment. Jung wrote that, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances, if there is any reaction, both are transformed. Obsession, then, is nothing less than transformation arrested midway, his soul caught in the fire she lit, unable to extinguish it, unable to walk away. Obsession intensifies when the feminine energy embodies the archetype of transformation itself. A woman becomes unforgettable not only because of what she reflects, but because of what she disrupts. Strong men are often bound by routine, by identity, by the rigid scaffolding of who they believe they must be. Yet when she arrives as a force of change, she cracks the shell of that certainty. He feels exposed, unstable, drawn into territory he cannot map. This destabilization terrifies him, yet he clings to it, because beneath fear lies the forbidden promise, renewal. Jung believed that the feminine carries the key to a man's individuation, the path through which he confronts the unlived parts of himself. When her presence rattles his composure, he is not only obsessed with her, he is obsessed with the possibility of becoming more than he has ever been. This transformative energy is not loud. It does not scream or command. Instead, it radiates as an undercurrent, a subtle defiance against stagnation. She may challenge him with questions that pierce his armor, questions that force him to see where he hides. She may laugh at his seriousness, shaking the ground beneath his pride. She may simply live in a way that contradicts the narrow roles he expects her to play. Each gesture, however small, destabilizes his carefully maintained order. And when order collapses, obsession grows, for the psyche clings to what it cannot master. He finds himself awake at night, circling the memory of her, as if circling the threshold of his own rebirth. Yet transformation also carries danger. To face the transformative feminine is to face death, not of the body, but of the false self. Many men resist, retreat, attempt to control her or reduce her into familiar categories. But the more he tries to bind her, the more elusive she becomes. He may rage, he may plead, but still he returns. The unconscious drives him forward, for it recognizes what the conscious denies, that she is not merely a woman, but the symbol of his unfinished becoming. This is why his obsession has a flavor of desperation, a hunger that reason cannot pacify. He senses she holds the key, and even if he despises the truth, he cannot let it slip from his grasp. The forbidden feminine energy that catalyzes transformation is often misunderstood as danger, yet its essence is liberation. She liberates not by pampering his illusions, but by stripping them away. Her refusal to submit to falsehood, her insistence on embodying her own depth, forces him into confrontation with reality. And paradoxically, he is obsessed because somewhere in his soul he longs to be freed, even if freedom means losing the man he thought he was. What makes this energy magnetic is its refusal to cling. The transformative woman does not grip him, does not chain herself to his uncertainty. She stands firm in her own evolution, whether he joins her or not. And this stance, this terrifying autonomy, becomes irresistible. For strong men, accustomed to women who orbit their power, the presence of a woman who carries her own sun is blinding. He cannot look directly at it, yet he cannot look away. He obsesses not because she needs him, but because she does not. Her independence awakens both admiration and fear, love and resistance, but above all, obsession. Thus the forbidden feminine energy, like a storm, does not arrive to comfort alone. It arrives to change the landscape, to uproot, to break, and to renew. And though he may struggle against it, his obsession reveals what he cannot deny: she has already altered the axis of his world. The energy deepens when the feminine embodies a quality that men rarely admit they crave: the sacred mystery of unpredictability. In a world where everything is mapped, measured, and calculated, the woman who cannot be reduced to formula becomes the flame his logic cannot extinguish. She does not exist as a puzzle to be solved but as a living riddle, shifting from tenderness to fire, from laughter to silence, from depth to lightness without warning. This fluidity mirrors nature itself, ever-changing, untamable, sovereign. And the strong man, accustomed to command, finds himself thrown into the chaos of wonder. His obsession is born not from control but from his utter lack of it. Yet unpredictability is not recklessness. It is not the chaos of self-destruction, but the sacred chaos of authenticity. The woman who embodies this energy does not perform moods for effect, she simply refuses to flatten herself into predictability. One day she may speak with the softness of water, the next she may stand like stone, unyielding. He cannot anticipate her rhythm, and this uncertainty binds him. For obsession thrives where certainty collapses. His unconscious clings to her precisely because she eludes his categories, because with her he feels the full spectrum of life. This unpredictability carries a hidden gift: it forces him into presence. With her, he cannot drift into mechanical habit or scripted behavior. He must remain awake, alert, alive, lest he miss the next unveiling of her essence. Jung observed that the feminine, when embodied fully, disrupts the rigid patterns of the masculine psyche, opening doors to instinct, creativity, and soul. Her unpredictability is not danger for its own sake, it is initiation. It is the baptism of unpredictability that reminds him he is still human, still vulnerable, still searching. And so, while his conscious mind may crave order, his deeper being craves her disorder, because within it lies the possibility of rebirth. But obsession is not sustained by unpredictability alone. It deepens when that unpredictability is paired with unwavering self-possession. A woman who flutters without center becomes noise, but a woman who shifts while rooted in her essence becomes music. This music plays in his psyche long after she has left the room. Her changes are not instability, they are the many faces of wholeness. To him, she is both storm and sky, both question and answer. And because she refuses to collapse into one role, one expression, one mask, he cannot dismiss her as he dismisses others. She haunts him, precisely because she cannot be summarized. In the unconscious, obsession always grows where symbols multiply. To the man, she becomes not one figure, but many, the mother, the lover, the muse, the challenger, the siren. Each encounter with her reveals a new face, a new archetype, a new mystery. And because she carries them all, she appears to him inexhaustible. The mind obsesses over what it cannot finish, what it cannot consume in entirety. Thus, he returns, again and again, for another glimpse, another taste, another fragment of the infinite. The forbidden feminine energy thrives not by explaining itself but by living unapologetically in contradiction. This contradiction is not weakness, but majesty. She is both light and shadow, both silence and song, both invitation and refusal. To stand in her presence is to stand in the presence of life itself, uncontained. And the man, for all his strength, is enslaved not by her body, but by her essence, the essence that whispers of something eternal, something his soul has forgotten yet longs to reclaim. It is in this paradoxical obsession takes its sharpest edge when the feminine embodies the archetype of shadow integration. She does not shine with only sweetness or gentle light, she walks unafraid through the darker corridors of her being. Men sense this immediately, though they cannot always name it. She carries a depth that hints at storms survived, at scars hidden beneath silk. And in this depth, he feels both danger and sanctuary. She is not a fantasy of untouchable purity, she is the living paradox of beauty forged through pain. Jung warned that the shadow, when unacknowledged, rules the psyche from below. A man obsessed with such a woman is not enthralled by perfection, he is consumed by her wholeness, by the union of light and dark that his own soul has long denied. When she speaks, there is weight in her voice, not because it is loud, but because it echoes with experience. When she smiles, it does not come from naivety, but from a wisdom that has faced grief and chosen life anyway. This authenticity unsettles him. For strong men often construct their identity around invulnerability, pretending their wounds do not exist. In her presence, that illusion collapses. She reveals by her very being that to be powerful is not to be untouched, but to be remade through trial. His obsession grows because she embodies what he fears, the courage to embrace brokenness without shame. This forbidden energy is not about drama or destruction. It is about the refusal to amputate parts of the self for acceptability. She may carry anger without apology, sadness without disguise, passion without restraint. She does not make herself smaller to soothe comfort zones. And in this radical self-acceptance, she becomes the mirror of his repressed self. He sees in her what he has buried, his grief, his rage, his yearning, and though he may resist, he cannot turn away. She has become the keeper of his denied truths, and the psyche obsesses over what it most fears and desires. Men describe such women as unforgettable not because they are easy, but because they are real. To be near her is to breathe in the fragrance of honesty, even when it burns. She does not flatter his illusions, she pierces them. She does not hide from her shadows, and so she exposes his. This confrontation is unbearable, yet intoxicating. He obsesses because he feels alive in her presence, more alive than he does in the safety of facades. She is the archetype of the dark muse, pulling him into confrontation with himself. And obsession, in its rawest form, is always the cry of the unconscious begging for recognition. But what truly binds him is her refusal to be consumed by her shadows. She integrates them, does not drown in them. She owns her storms, but does not unleash them blindly. She is not chaos unchecked, but fire mastered. This mastery terrifies him, because it reminds him of what he lacks, the courage to own his contradictions. Her wholeness makes him feel incomplete, and obsession grows from that incompleteness like ivy through stone. He returns again and again, not simply for her body or words, but for the promise that through her, he might reclaim the exiled pieces of his soul. The forbidden feminine energy of shadow integration awakens in him the most primal recognition, that obsession is not about conquest, but about healing. He obsesses not because she gives him what he wants, but because she reveals what he has lost. And in the silence of night, when his pride sleeps, he knows, she is both his wound and his cure. There is a silence more powerful than words, and it belongs to the woman who embodies sovereign detachment. Not coldness, not indifference, but the luminous stillness of one who does not hinge her existence on another's approval. Men sense this the way animals sense weather before a storm. Her presence does not cling, her gaze does not beg, her energy does not collapse into the orbit of his. She walks with the subtle fragrance of freedom, and freedom is intoxicating. Strong men, who are used to adoration wrapping around them like chains of silk, suddenly find themselves unmoored. The more she refuses to be captured, the more their unconscious seeks to capture her. This detachment is not the brittle wall of fear or trauma, but the spacious air of self-possession. She has already faced the shadows of abandonment and rejection, and has built her throne upon them. Now, she does not chase nor flee, she simply is. And in that being, obsession grows. Because the man, for all his power, feels the gravitational pull of someone who cannot be swayed by his status, his wealth, his dominance. She is not against him, nor beneath him, she is beyond him. In Jungian terms, she has individuated, stepped out of the collective expectations of what a woman should be, and lives as her own archetype. This terrifies him. It fascinates him. It enslaves him. Detachment is the forbidden feminine energy that reveals the hunger of the masculine ego for control. The man who meets her will try everything to provoke reaction, to spark jealousy, to summon need. Yet she remains steady, not because she does not feel, but because she refuses to betray herself for validation. This refusal drives him restless. His unconscious whispers that he has met his equal, perhaps even his superior, not in conquest, but in inner mastery. And so he obsesses, pacing in the prison of his own desire, desperate to know what could make her falter. But she does not falter. She may love deeply, she may give passionately, but she does not collapse. If he withdraws, she does not chase. If he tests, she does not crumble. Her silence is not punishment, it is sovereignty. In that silence, he hears the loudest truth, she does not need him. And what man can resist the one who does not need him, yet still chooses to stand near him? This paradox crushes the ego but awakens the soul. Her detachment also ignites reverence. He begins to see her not as a prize to be claimed, but as a force to be honored. The unconscious paints her as queen, oracle, priestess, untouchable yet magnetic. And the stronger his hunger to possess, the stronger his realization that possession is impossible. He obsesses because she embodies the very thing he cannot conquer, freedom. And freedom, once glimpsed, becomes unforgettable. He may seek countless women, but none will echo with the same resonance. Others may flatter his pride, chase his attention, bend to his will. But she, the detached one, remains etched into his mind like a symbol. She haunts him, not because she played games, but because she never played at all. Her very existence revealed the falsity of the game itself. This is the forbidden feminine energy that marks him permanently. He obsesses not because she was absent, but because she was fully present without dependence. He obsesses because her silence carried more power than 1,000 words. And in that silence, he glimpsed the deepest truth of desire, that freedom, once tasted, cannot be forgotten. Obsession sharpens into fire when the feminine energy awakens eros without collapsing into it. She is sensual not because she performs for approval, but because every movement, every breath, carries the weight of embodiment. She is at home in her body, unashamed of its rhythms, unapologetic in its desires. And in this unapologetic presence, she awakens the buried eros within him, the current of life force that is older than lust, deeper than attraction, more primal than reason. Jung described eros as the connective principle, the binding energy that fuses soul to soul. When a woman embodies it with sovereignty, she becomes unforgettable, because she calls him back to the forgotten union between flesh and spirit. But this energy is forbidden precisely because it does not beg, does not seduce in the predictable ways he expects. She may brush past him and leave his skin burning for hours. She may laugh in a way that stirs longing deeper than touch. She may meet his eyes for a fleeting second, and he feels as if he has been pierced by something eternal. These gestures are not staged, they flow naturally from her integration of body and soul. It is her authenticity, not her performance, that enslaves him. He obsesses not because she tempts, but because she simply exists as eros incarnate. And yet, she does not hand him the key to her temple. She does not surrender all mystery in the name of passion. She holds the paradox of availability and untouchability. He may feel close to her warmth, yet never fully grasp her flame. This dance between presence and distance, invitation and refusal, is what fuels his fixation. For obsession thrives not on what is consumed, but on what cannot be consumed. He longs for her not because she gives endlessly, but because she leaves space for hunger to live. This eros is not simply sexual, it is creative. The man finds himself dreaming more vividly, speaking with intensity, pursuing ventures he once delayed. In her presence, his energy multiplies, his world feels alive. He attributes this to her, though in truth it is his own dormant life force she has reawakened. But because she is the catalyst, he cannot separate the flame from the fire. He begins to believe she alone is the source, and thus obsession deepens. His mind returns to her image, his body recalls her nearness, his soul aches with the reminder of vitality. Yet the forbidden feminine energy of eros is dangerous for him, because it reveals his dependency. The stronger the man, the more he fears the vulnerability of needing another for inspiration. He will wrestle with this, resist it, deny it. But the denial only intensifies his fixation. For what the ego rejects, the unconscious clings to. He becomes haunted not only by her presence, but by what she awakens in him that he cannot recreate alone. And here lies the essence of obsession. It is never about possession of her body alone, but about the possession of the life force she embodies. He believes he wants her, but what he truly wants is himself, reborn, awakened, alive. She is simply the mirror in which he glimpses that possibility. And because he cannot yet hold it within himself, he obsesses over her, as though she is the missing piece. But the forbidden feminine energy cannot be owned. It can only be witnessed, honored, respected. The more he tries to capture it, the more it slips through his grasp, like fire escaping clenched fists. And yet, he cannot let go. For in her presence, he touched eternity, and eternity once touched is never forgotten. The fire of obsession reaches its most dangerous point when the feminine energy embodies the archetype of destiny. She does not present herself as convenience, nor as coincidence, she arrives like an omen. A man may try to rationalize his attraction, but reason bends in her presence. There is a quality about her that feels fated, as though their meeting was written long before either drew breath. This aura of inevitability terrifies him, for it dissolves his illusion of control. Strong men live by choice, by power, by the authority to decide. Yet with her, he feels chosen by something larger than himself. And the psyche, once it tastes destiny, cannot untaste it. This forbidden energy is not about dramatic claims or mystical performance. It resides in her stillness, in the way she exists without urgency. She does not declare herself his destiny, she simply carries herself as though her path is ordained. Jung wrote that the unconscious communicates in symbols, and to the male psyche, she becomes a living symbol, the embodiment of anima, muse, oracle. When he looks at her, he does not see only a woman, he sees the reflection of his own soul calling him forward. He obsesses because she has become more than desire, she has become meaning. But meaning, once awakened, is unbearable to dismiss. He may try to reduce her to just another encounter, to categorize her among many, but the unconscious resists. She haunts him not as memory, but as prophecy. He feels that without her, something in him will remain unfinished. His obsession becomes pilgrimage, a restless wandering toward her essence. And though he may deny it with his words, his actions betray the truth, he is bound, not by her hand, but by the myth she evokes within him. The forbidden feminine energy of destiny does not cling, does not demand. That is her paradox. She does not try to convince him that she is inevitable, she simply lives in the fullness of her being. And in this fullness, he feels the stirring of his own higher calling. He obsesses not only because he desires her, but because she symbolizes his path, his becoming, his unlived life. She is the mirror of the man he could be, and so he cannot release her. To let her go would be to abandon himself. This is why strong men are undone by such women. They may conquer kingdoms, yet they cannot conquer the sense of inevitability she awakens. They may try to silence the pull, but their unconscious whispers relentlessly, she is the key. And in this whisper, obsession grows, because the unconscious will not rest until the myth is fulfilled. Yet destiny is never about possession, it is about transformation. The woman who carries this energy does not lose herself in the myth she evokes. She understands that she is not his destiny, she is simply the mirror through which he glimpses it. This understanding is her power. She need not prove herself, nor diminish herself. She simply is. And because she does not chase, because she does not force, her presence becomes eternal. He obsesses not because she bound him, but because she freed him into a vision of himself he cannot ignore. And here the arc of obsession reaches its zenith. He is not obsessed with her body, nor with her smile, nor with her voice alone. He is obsessed with what she represents, the anima, the shadow, the eros, the destiny. She is the sum of his unlived life, and until he dares to live it himself, he will circle her like a star bound to its sun. And yet, every fire must eventually transform into light, or it burns both to ash. The obsession a strong man feels for the forbidden feminine is not meant to last forever, it is meant to awaken. Jung taught that the anima, the feminine figure within a man's unconscious, is not the woman herself but the mirror she provides. Her purpose is not to enslave him, but to draw him toward wholeness. In truth, he is never truly obsessed with her, he is obsessed with the fragments of his own soul she reflects. The deeper she embodies her forbidden energies, shadow, eros, mystery, detachment, destiny, the more she forces him to confront what he has denied. But here lies the liberation, she is not bound to his awakening. She is not his cure, his possession, or his salvation. She is her own sovereign being, and in living fully, she grants him the chance to see himself. This is why her power does not depend on his obsession. Even as he clings, she walks freely, because her worth is not tethered to his hunger. She can love without collapse, give without depletion, and walk away without losing herself. The forbidden feminine is forbidden not because it is cruel, but because it refuses captivity. For the woman, the danger of obsession lies in mistaking his fixation for proof of her value. His longing is not a crown upon her head, it is a shadow upon his soul. To chase obsession is to fall into the illusion of control, but to witness it with clarity is to hold true power. She must remember, obsession is his work, not hers. It is the alchemy of his psyche, the fire that burns until he faces himself. If she confuses it with love, she risks drowning in the very shadows she has mastered. The true feminine power lies in detachment from the need to be worshipped. She does not require obsession to know she is magnetic. She does not require longing to prove her worth. Her essence, whole and integrated, is enough. And when she stands in this essence, the obsession she inspires becomes irrelevant. For she has transcended the game, stepped beyond the need to feed the hungry ghosts of validation. She becomes untouchable not because she withholds, but because she has returned to herself. In the end, the strongest men may remain haunted by her image, circling the memory of her like moths to flame. They may call her unforgettable, mysterious, destined. And in truth, she is. But the deepest truth is this, she was never meant to be consumed. She was meant to remind them of what they are missing within. The feminine, in her forbidden glory, awakens longing not for herself but for the unclaimed soul. And when she understands this, she is free. For freedom is the final feminine energy, the one that dissolves every chain. The woman who knows herself walks with a grace that needs no witness, a fire that asks for no permission. She does not wait for obsession to define her, she defines herself. And in that definition, she becomes untouchable, eternal, whole. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.